So you're either a best man, maid of honor, a parent, or someone else that has been roped into giving a reception speech and toast at someone's wedding. After filming weddings for 5 years, I've sat through my fair share of wedding toast and speeches. I've seen what works, and more importantly, what doesn't. If you're not sure where to start, what to say, or are worried about embarrassing yourself in front of hundreds of people, this video will give you some pointers on how to crush it when you stand up to speak. Let's start at the beginning of your speech, and I mean the literal beginning. Whatever you do, please, for the love of God, do not start with this line.
For those of you that do not know who I am.
For those of you who don't know me.
For those who don't know me.
For those of you who don't know me.
Seriously, any other opener is better than that. Even something like, "Hi, my name is Nathaniel, and I have the honor of standing up here as Tyler's best man," is great. Your introduction doesn't need to be fancy. Now that everyone knows who you are, what do you say? Start with how you know the bride or groom and how long you've known them. Talk about how you first met or simply a favorite story or two you have of them. That being said, your entire speech shouldn't just be one memory after the other. Give compliments to the person you're speaking about. Say something about their character and how you know they'll be a great spouse. Even better is when you can work a story and a compliment together. For example, if you're the best man and you're recalling how the groom drove 3 hours in a blizzard to help you pull your car out of a snowbank, end the story by saying, "That's how I know he'll do anything for the people he cares about." Okay, so you said who you are, you've told a story or two, and have said nice things about the person you stood up with as they got married. Mission accomplished, right? Nope. Everything you just did for the bride or groom, do again for the person they married. Say something about how your best friend or daughter first introduced them to this guy or gal she was hanging out with, and tell everyone your first impression. Even if it wasn't the best first impression, don't be afraid to work that into your speech. It's an easy joke that can get some laughs from the crowd. But if that is the case, just make sure to convey that your first impression of them was wrong and this person's actually awesome. Then say a couple of nice things about how amazing it is that they love your friend, when you knew they were going to be together forever, or something along those lines. You're now almost at the end of your speech. Wrap things up by going over how these two people make an amazing couple, and feel free to offer some advice if you're married. If you're not married or can't think of any good advice to give, there's nothing wrong with looking up a good quote about marriage from the internet. Emphasis on the quote being good. This is super important, but actually don't forget to ask the wedding guests to raise their glasses and give a toast. The toast doesn't need to be anything complicated. To the new Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and here's to a long and loving marriage, will more than get the job done. Then that's it. Pass the microphone to the next person speaking or the DJ, then you're good to go. Your reception speech doesn't need to be anything complicated. To recap the structure, first talk about the person whose wedding party you're in, then talk about the new spouse, then wrap things up by talking about them as a couple before raising your glass. Now let's go over some additional tips to make sure your toast is a success, starting with how long it should be. There's no one answer for how long your speech should be, but I would aim to keep it to no longer than 5 minutes. Chances are, you're not the only person who's going to be speaking, and no one at the wedding, and I mean literally no one, wants to sit through speeches that go on and on and on. I filmed weddings where the speeches lasted for upwards of 40 minutes, and one time where they went on for over an hour and a half. It's absolute insanity, and speeches that last way too long derail the rest of the reception. The last thing I want to talk about are jokes. Yes, there's nothing wrong with incorporating jokes into your speech, but please, I beg you, stay away from these jokes at all costs.
I'll make this as quick as Brady lasts in bed.
Natisha, please put your left hand flat on the table. Now Kyle, please put your left hand flat on top of hers. Enjoy this moment, Kyle, because it's the first and last time in your marriage you will ever have the upper hand.
To look each other in the eyes. You're now looking into the eyes of the person who is statistically most likely to murder you.
Especially that first one. I really don't get why people think that's a good joke to use at a wedding where there are parents and grandparents in attendance. A good rule of thumb is this. Anything that comes up in a Google search for best man jokes, just don't use them. This video isn't meant to provide the only way to write a reception speech, but hopefully if you're stuck or unsure of where to even start, this offers you some guidance.